Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, December 23rd, 2025. Max Blumenthal will be with us in just a moment on some really fascinating stories. Barry Weiss and CBS. Why did she spike that piece that's now all over the internet? The Epstein documents. Did the government use cheap software that will allow you to remove the redactions? And Bibi Netanyahu, is he really going to investigate himself? But first this. History tells us every market eventually falls. Currencies collapse. And look at where we are now. 38 trillion in national debt. Stocks at record highs defying gravity. So what happens next? Groceries, gas, housing, everything's going up. And this dollar, it buys less every day. When the system breaks, your stocks won't save you and your dollars won't either. But one thing will: gold. I've said it on my show for years. Gold survives collapse. Central bankers know this and billionaires know it. That's why they're buying more. Is it too late to buy, or is it just the right time? Call my friends at Lear Capital to find out. Ask questions, get the free information. There's no pressure, and that's why I buy my gold and silver from Lear. And right now, you can get up to $20,000 in bonus metals with a qualified purchase. Call 800-511-4620 or go to LearJudgeNap.com today. Max Blumenthal, welcome here, my dear friend. A number of varied topics of interest to the audience, and I know of interest to you and me. This Barry Weiss, head of CBS News, spiking this report, which reports absolutely horrific medieval conditions at this prison in El Salvador. What can you tell us about the background here?
Well, I think everyone watching this knows that Barry Weiss has taken over CBS News after extremely storied career as one of our top investigative journalists, a model of unbiased objectivity, breaking several Pulitzer-winning stories. No, I mean, Barry Weiss is just a national joke who was installed because of her fealty to Israel by David Ellison, who took over CBS News, merging it with Paramount through his father, Larry Ellison, who is the largest donor to the Friends of the IDF. And it's pretty clear what's happening here. Barry Weiss, she's not MAGA. She's not America first. She's essentially Israel first, but she owes her career to tech billionaires who are very close to Trump, the PayPal mafia, who funded this fake university for her in Austin. And she got a call from the Trump administration about a 60 Minutes report, which was going to be very embarrassing. And so she told her entire staff at CBS News, we need to do more. We need to do more reporting. But the report had already been vetted. The administration had rejected or ignored requests for comment, and it was ready to go. It had met all the editorial standards. So Barry Weiss is now exposed as a sort of administration check or a personal kill switch on anything that embarrasses the Trump administration and embarrasses their foreign policy. And we can assume anything that Israel doesn't want in there anymore. And so let's examine what this report is about and who it might upset in the administration. It is about the CCOT prison in El Salvador, which is a special prison created by the self-described world's coolest dictator, Nayib Bukele, for so-called terrorists who are mostly low-level gang members from MS-13. Now, in March, there was a negotiation for the return of 250 Venezuelan migrants to Venezuela. And Rick Grenell, Trump's special envoy to Venezuela, was overseeing a larger negotiation which would have allowed Chevron to renew drilling rights inside Venezuela in exchange for sending these 250 Venezuelans directly back to Caracas, and then 11 Americans being held by the Venezuelan government for spying and other alleged offenses would be sent back to the US. So it's like a win-win for everybody. Marco Rubio swoops in, sabotages the deal, then arranges to send those 250 Venezuelans without their knowledge to CICOT in El Salvador, where he's very close friends with Bukele. They come out of a plane, they're publicly humiliated on camera, have their heads shaved, and then they're tortured for weeks and weeks. And now they finally described the horrors they endured to 60 Minutes. And keep in mind, according to ICE statistics, only 3% of those Venezuelan migrants sent to CICOT had ever been convicted of a violent crime. These were nonviolent Venezuelans whose only crime was being in the US. In fact, they weren't even in the US illegally. They were in the US under TPS. So Rubio oversaw this. He sabotaged diplomacy because he wanted to prevent Venezuela from getting oil revenue. He wanted to prevent the US from talking to Maduro. And so he saw these Venezuelans get tortured. And now it's all exposed in a CBS report. Everyone thinks Stephen Miller, who's the face and voice of Trump's deportation policy, is the one upset by this. But I think it's really Rubio here who's responsible for this foreign policy debacle, this deportation debacle, who has the most to lose by the airing of this report. And now Barry Weiss is exposed. And finally, those of us who know what 60 Minutes really is know that it always has been a channel or conduit for CIA and State Department propaganda. It was actually exposed in the Church Committee, where its CBS executives testified that they had been hiring CIA assets to work inside 60 Minutes and CBS. But now Barry Weiss has lifted the mask on that, and we can see that it's just pure government propaganda, and she's done so in the sloppiest, most zealous way possible. In a way, I kind of welcome it.
Well, I agree with you, because we welcome the exposure to what Ellison and his tool Barry Weiss are accomplishing there. I wonder if some of their more senior journalists will leave. I mean, who would watch this stuff if it's just going to become a mouthpiece for the administration?
Well, the senior journalists are openly criticizing Barry Weiss. They're not shy about attacking her publicly. She has lost the trust and confidence of the entire newsroom. And in order to cover for her, in order to compensate for her covering for the Trump administration, she's going to have to do something that will upset Trump, which means biting the hand that feeds her and upsetting the Ellison family. So what will she do? She's placed herself in an impossible position, and she has very little journalistic credibility to stand on. I mean, she was a joke coming in. Again, I welcome this, because now everyone can see how corporate media has always operated, and
Right.
Corporate media is eating itself alive. Barry Weiss's town hall with Erica Kirk, I don't know if you managed to suffer through that. I'm kind of a masochist, so I watched 20 minutes of it. I mean, in addition to being uncomfortable, it was very, very boring. And I looked at the YouTube hit count on that video at the time, and it had been online for 4 or 5 days. It had about 160,000 views. That's kind of like ballpark what we get at the Gray Zone on a live stream in a few hours. And they have all the Ellison's money behind them. So this should tell you how little public interest there is in the kind of garbage and drivel and propaganda that Barry Weiss's CBS is pumping out.
Let's move on to the latest from the Epstein files. Is this internet rumor true that if you use the right software and know what you're doing, you can remove the redactions from one of the tranches? If true, this is remarkably incompetent of the DOJ, from one of the tranches of documents that the DOJ released.
Well, I haven't tried copying and pasting from the DOJ's website to Word or to an email document, but I think your producer, Chris, has, and he's confirmed that you can do that. So that's a pretty big mistake on the part of DOJ, and it's not the only one. If you go to the X account of the DOJ, They're basically making excuses and seeking for and making denials of various documents that they themselves have released because they are embarrassing to Donald Trump. And one of those documents is a supposed alleged handwritten letter from Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar, the gymnastics coach who was jailed for basically molesting young female gymnasts. And it said that in the note, Epstein supposedly says the only person who likes young nubile girls as much as us is Donald Trump. Now, the letter was postmarked 3 days after Jeffrey Epstein died. It was mailed from Virginia. Epstein was held in New York. It looks to be fake. It was submitted for handwriting analysis in 2020, yet the Department of Justice still released this letter. It's careening around, especially in the liberal anti-Trump corners of the internet. And the Department of Justice has had to issue a statement about this possibly fake letter from Epstein to Larry Nassar because they themselves didn't do their due diligence and were too sloppy and lazy to conduct the handwriting analysis and determine that this was fake before they released it. So this is a massive own goal on the part of the Justice Department. And they've spent millions of dollars making these redactions so that Donald Trump wouldn't be embarrassed. And it looks like they totally failed and got owned by the internet.
We're going to play a clip now from FBI Director Kash Patel, in which he says there's no evidence Epstein was trafficking to anyone else, that he was doing all the trafficking himself. And then we're going to show you documents that the Justice Department released saying the FBI has been looking at 10 co-conspirators. Chris?
Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Now, here's from the one of the emails in the file. Of the 10 co-conspirators, 3 have been located in Florida and served GJ, that's grand jury subpoenas. One in Boston, 1 in New York City, 1 in Connecticut were located and served. 4 of the 10 are outstanding, with attempts having been made. 1 is a wealthy businessman in Ohio. A lead is being sent to the CV. I'm not sure what that means. The remaining 3 are currently out of pocket. Let me know if you need anything else. That's an email from an FBI agent to a superior in D.C., directly defying what FBI Director Kash Patel just told Senator Kennedy under oath.
Yeah. I am struggling to make sense of the gulf between Kash Patel and what is appearing in these emails, where 10 co-conspirators are referred to. But the issue here is a political one for the Trump administration.
Yes.
And everything that concerns the substance of these emails and files and the veracity of them is almost not relevant when you consider the political issue, which is the credibility of a figure like Kash Patel. Kash Patel is someone who fed the fury about Epstein and the view that there were as many as 10 co-conspirators or more, that Epstein was trafficking all over the country, not just to himself, and globally. And so was Dan Bongino, who recently resigned to avoid the scrutiny that Kash Patel is now getting today as this email surfaces. I assume that was one of the factors that influenced Bongino's decision. And they have both been completely trashed by White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles in an interview with Vanity Fair, where she calls them both conspiracists who basically set themselves up for their own discrediting. So this is really an issue that's much larger than Jeffrey Epstein or the reality of his trafficking network. And it's about the mystique of Donald Trump as a figure who was supposed to take on the deep state and break up these alleged pedophile networks, and the reality that his base is now confronted with, where his FBI director is making mealy-mouth excuses for Jeffrey Epstein and sounds like Jeffrey Epstein's defense lawyer.
Today, among the revelations were multiple passports from different countries used by Jeffrey Epstein. Sound like Mossad to you?
It sounds like someone who may have been working in a freelance fashion with multiple intelligence agencies, but the Mossad-related material has all been appearing in independent media through not the Epstein files, but the Handala leaks. Handala is the name of a apparently Iranian hacker organization which managed to infiltrate the email accounts of various former Israeli officials, including Ehud Barak. And Barak and Epstein were thicker than thieves. They were working very closely together on various security companies, as well as on intelligence-related ventures, working as back channels to various countries. And this has only appeared in independent media. The mainstream US press has made no effort to investigate Epstein's ties to all of these various Israeli intelligence adjacent figures, and Ehud Barak, who is Israel's most decorated soldier, former prime minister, former defense minister, and was still heavily invested in Israeli security related companies. So, it's sort of like the press isn't interested in this question, but it's very clear that Epstein was at least adjacent, based on what we know from these emails. He was at least adjacent to Israeli intelligence. And who else has that many passports? The governor of Virginia is one of the few people I can think of who had that many passports. She had 5 passports. And who was she? She was a CIA agent working in various countries for 5 years.
Correct. Will the Israeli public accept with a straight face Benjamin Netanyahu as chair of the Commission of Investigation of what happened on October 7th?
Well, it doesn't matter what the Israeli public thinks. It matters what the Knesset thinks and whether Netanyahu can hold his coalition together. But he certainly has no credibility on the issue. And he's surrounded by staffers who have been exposed for being paid by Qatar in the midst of negotiations that Qatar was brokering, who have leaked bogus material and misinformation to the international press on behalf of Netanyahu to stall negotiations. And Netanyahu is doing everything he can to avoid having a credible October 7th commission. I mean, the Jewish Israeli public does not view Netanyahu favorably, but he holds power because there's no other figure capable of winning over a large enough slice of the Jewish Israeli public to replace him. And so he's there. And I have not that much, to be honest, I have not that much interest in internal Israeli politics, because Netanyahu's fate will be determined by what happens outside Israel and how much leverage he continues to get with the Trump administration at a time when the Israeli press is actually becoming, the pro-Netanyahu press is actually becoming very negative towards Trump.
Interesting. Alistair Crook made similar arguments yesterday morning, saying that when the peace deal goes more south than it already is, Netanyahu will blame Trump. Earlier,
yeah, I mean, if Trump pushes him towards phase 2, and I doubt he'll do that, although his team has acknowledged that disarming Hamas might be a fool's errand and an impossible task, going to phase 2 would be very damaging for Netanyahu. And Trump has all the leverage he needs to push him.
Earlier today, Greta Thunberg, the peace activist, was quietly crouched down on the sidewalk in front of a British insurance company that insures what remains of the British defense industry. holding up a sign saying, "I oppose genocide." She's now in jail for holding up that sign.
Well, I think you can be arrested now in the UK for chanting "Globalize the Intifada." You can be arrested and accused of supporting terrorism for supporting Palestine Action, which is a group that has carried out minor property damage on Israeli arms companies' factories inside the UK, like Elbit Systems. And they kept getting off after doing this because they could explain their case to juries of their peers in the UK who would realize, well, they were doing this actually to stop a genocide. They were disrupting the operations of essentially the railways to Auschwitz, and we sympathize with these activists, and so we're letting them off. So the UK proscribed Palestine Action under Starmer as a terrorist organization, even though, you know, they've never killed anyone. They're not attempting to physically harm or kill people. But the terrorism designation allowed the UK to then punish people for publicly supporting Palestine Action, hoping that it would weaken the protest movement surrounding them. And this has completely failed. People now go out with signs that say, "I support Plasticine Action." I guess you could say totalize the Intifada, but you can't say globalize the Intifada.
So the statute actually proscribes specific words, and if you modify those words, changing Palestine to plasticine,
Yeah,
you can get your message across and you're not subject to arrest.
exactly. And by proscribing them as a terrorist group, the UK is hoping to get rid of jury trials where any of their activism is concerned. There are over 50 activists jailed from Palestine Action, and they're on hunger strike. And many of them have been on hunger strike for weeks and are in failing conditions. So Greta Thunberg entered the UK with the apparent intention of getting arrested just to demonstrate before a global audience how absurdly repressive the UK's laws are around, and how they have imposed them in order to crush probably the most effective activist organization in the world protesting Israel's genocidal policies. And so she's taken this to another level. I should also mention Reginald Hunter, a popular British comedian, was just acquitted of anti-Semitism for completely harmless jokes he made on a British stage. 2 NHS doctors from the National Health Service in the UK have been arrested for pro-Palestine commentary that they've made. I am not inclined to travel to the UK at any time in the near future. The UK has become a repressive hellhole, which is clearly controlled by a foreign apartheid state called Israel.
Wow. Thank you, Max. Thanks for your time. I think you know that Judging Freedom reached the 100 million view mark over the weekend. We're deeply grateful for all the contributions that you made to this. I'm personally grateful for our professional collaboration and our personal friendship. And just to let everybody know, on Christmas Day at 10 in the morning Eastern Time, we will begin 8 hours of a Maxathon. All the Max Blumenthal you can get, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. Max, thank you for letting us do that. Thank you for being such a faithful demonstrator of the truth here on this channel. Much appreciated. We'll look forward to seeing you and your growing family next year.
Well, thanks for hosting that much of my content. I didn't realize we had enough for that, but congratulations on the growth of this channel and all the impact it's been making, the pro-peace impact.
Thank you, Max. All the best to you.
Happy holidays.
And to you, my friend, and to your family. Coming up tomorrow, Wednesday, Christmas Eve, we're working in the morning. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Gilbert Doctorow. At 9 in the morning, Phil Giraldi. At 10 in the morning, Professor John Mearsheimer. At 11 in the morning, Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.